Thank you. Thank you. You know, people often ask me what a futurist is, and I guess we are all futurists. All of us think about the future all the time. Who here has children? You know, I often say, either you take hold of your future, or the future will take hold of you. That our future is something that we see coming towards us, that we prepare for, or it is something that we create as a result of our own efforts and decisions. And I want to divide the future into 6 pieces. The reason why people take a deep breath to think about the future, the reason why so many organizations use people outside their organizations to think about the future, is because of the biggest risk of all, which is that we will be locked up to our own business unit view, our own company view, our own industry view, our own political view, our own national government view. And institutional blindness is one of the greatest risks we face when we're thinking about customers. So I'm going to divide the future into the 6 phases that have just been mentioned. F-U-T-U-R-E, and the first is fast, to do with the speed of change. Now I'm going to bring together a number of the challenges that we've already been hearing about today. But the fact of the matter is that the world changes a whole lot faster than you can even organize a meeting. And that is a huge challenge. It really is. And as for redesigning or reintegrating with legacy systems and IT, goodness knows what, it's a real challenge. And, you know, who wants to wait? We are only in the first hour of the web world. But already it is true that if your web page takes more than 30 seconds to load, you will lose 30% of your market. And put your hands up if when you wait for a lift, you find yourself pressing the button more than once, like me. Put your hands up. Okay, now why do we do this? I mean, why do we do this? We know it is totally crazy. We know that the lift cannot possibly come any faster with a single extra click. But we all do it. We are IT professionals, but we behave totally irrationally when it comes to using IT ourselves. And if it's so of us, then it is true of our consumers as well. You see, the future, my friends, is not about technology. It's not about innovation. It's not even about customers. It's not even about process re-engineering and the rest. It's something else which will tie together many of the things that we've been hearing about already. I spend much of my life on the outer edge of this screen, at the low probability but potentially high impact issues which come crashing into your strategy. I'm thinking of 1% probability risks. And inside your organization, there are probably hundreds of them, which means that the risk of some such thing happening in the next 6 months is incredibly high on average. And managing uncertainty is a major challenge. Here is an example of an uncertainty. I've just come back from Japan, Hong Kong, and that part of the world, who was so badly hit by SARS. They are worried about this issue. But so is HSBC as a global bank. HSBC thinks that up to half of their own staff will stay at home. That's 145,000 employees would not work. The worst estimate for bird flu, if this virus learns how to change so it can spread between human beings rapidly, the worst estimate in the US is around 2 million deaths, around only 800,000 deaths in my country, the UK. Now, I don't know what the risk is of this happening, but I know what the WHO is saying. They say it's 100% likelihood that this virus or some other virus will learn how to jump between human beings very fast. By the way, I should tell you, in my first training, I'm a physician, a doctor of medicine. So this interests me a lot. And I've been tracking the AIDS epidemic for many years. In fact, my wife and I have an AIDS foundation to fight just such a problem. Now, I can't tell you what the probability will be of the worst case. I think it's very, very low. I think probably it will be just another case of very bad ordinary flu. But what it's obvious is this. I've been doing a survey of global executives around the world. And it's obvious from my own surveys that if bird flu, something like this, had started to spread 4 weeks ago, and by tonight, by yesterday maybe, we already had 10 cases in Berlin, but 500 suspected cases in Frankfurt, another 50 in London, and 200 in New York, over 700 suspected cases in Beijing, and 45 in Moscow, and so on. If this was happening last week, my guess is that quite a few of you might have decided not to come. Put your hands in the air if you might have decided not to come if there was bird flu in the city. Put your hands up. It's about a third of you. Well, on most executive surveys, I find half the audience would stay home. Half the audience staying home when there are only 2,000 cases reported worldwide. What that shows us is the future, my friends, is not about technology, it's not about viruses, it's not about emotion. It's not about statistics, it's about emotion. It's about emotional reactions to events, and that's why we don't believe market research. Market research can't tell you the future. It's only as good as the opinions of your customers, and they're usually wrong. They're usually wrong. I can give you hundreds of examples of where customers have consistently got it wrong. And one is my mother. My mother thinks that the devil himself lives in mobile phones, and she will never use technology to trade internet stocks and shares. But one day she phoned me up because she is losing all her social life. All her friends are organizing their diaries by email, and then she gets a letter, but the letter is always a month late. So she asked me to take her online, and we went and bought the fastest. She wanted the fastest and the best. She wanted a broad computer, broadband. She wanted one that was wireless, and she wanted a skipping computer as well. In other words, she wanted Skype and video camera and everything. She came back with everything that she could find, and the following day I had a phone call from her. She said, I have a terrible problem. I'm using my phone, the new 3G video phone. I can't see my bank, and they can't see me. Now, the trouble is, my mother had jumped 35 years in 3.5 hours and left her bank behind. Why? Because the bank believes in market research. So you listen to my mother, but don't believe her. Listen to the customers, get close to them, and when you have got inside their minds, then create a vision of their future and put them into it. I'm going to show you an example of this challenge. Here is a video. It advertises a product on TV, and it passed market research. It got 10 out of 10 for market research scores, but when it was shown in my country, it was banned. The question is why? Will someone tell me what is wrong with my country? I mean, why on earth do you think this video was banned? Any idea? Not in the slightest. Any idea why this video could possibly have been banned? Any idea? No, none. Well, actually, some people thought it was quite close to the truth. Put your hands up if you noticed that Christmas Day came round a whole week earlier last year than the year before. Life is speeding up. Our understanding of time is speeding up, and this is quite close to reality. It also touches on one of the greatest mysteries of life itself, which is what it's all for. Here is an issue based on trust, and trust is the is the most fundamental thing that you can sell to a customer. Would you recommend the product that you've just bought to your family or friends? And you might think this is a silly test, but actually it is the only test that really matters. And you know that the answer to that particular question will predict your sales performance to a very large degree in the future. Now, here is a challenge. You would think that it's easy to answer and it gets sorted out, but here is a shocking example of where it isn't. I spoke recently to a conference of hundreds of fund managers, people controlling billions of dollars of your money. And I asked them a simple question. I knew the answer because I had already asked many others the same question, but it still shocked me. I asked a conference like this. I said, all of you sell retail funds. All of you sell it on the basis of a promise, which is that it's a good investment. So because of that promise, I want you to put your hand up and tell me how many of you have recommended your own retail investment product to your own mother, your brother, or your best friend. About 10% started to put their hands up, and the rest grabbed their hands and pulled it down. My next question was, put your hands in the air if you have got your own money in your own funds. All the hands go up. My next question, keep your hands in the air if you chose to put your own money in your own funds. All the hands go down. Now, that's a big issue. Here is a product being sold on the basis of trust by people who clearly don't believe in it. And it's a problem, a fundamental problem, in that entire industry right now, as that survey has shown. So, and of course, when you start to expose a story like that, it creates a contamination where the trust issue then spreads to other areas of financial service. And exactly the same happens in government, it happens in the health service, it happens in education, it happens in the energy industry. So this issue of trust is a very emotional issue and a really serious one. Here's another question. When you Googled this hotel, because you knew you were coming here, and you typed in the name of the hotel, you saw two things. You saw the Google ads, the paid advertisement, and you saw Tripadvisor.com come up as #1 on Google, because it always does. So which one do you click on first? Do you click on TripAdvisor, which is all the comments of people who stayed here last week? Or do you click on the official advertisement for the hotel to find out the truth? Put your hands up if you believe TripAdvisor comments more than the hotel's own advertisement. Put your hands up. Put your hands up if you believe the hotel advertisement more than TripAdvisor. About 3. You see, in an online age, advertising is dead. You can spend as much money as you like trying to connect emotionally with your customers, but if the first thing they do when they've seen your ads is go online and they see challenges like my room was full of rats, or the food was so bad that my wife had to go to hospital for a month. Now, if they see things like that, then there is no point whatsoever in promoting the product. In fact, the more you promote the product, the more damage you will do. Why? Because you are creating an image of a product which is completely disconnected from the reality. So what we learn is this: in an online world, a good product sells itself to an extent, and when you have a powerful story, then you have an amazing opportunity, and you don't have to be big in order to do it. And that's the beauty of e-government and all these other democratizing processes, that it allows a community itself to pass judgment on what is happening. Fast urban. Urban is about demographics, but it's also about the urbanization of society. It's about this spectacular growth. 1 billion new consumers all becoming adults in the next 15 years because they are children right now. It's the greatest growth in the consumer market that we have seen in human history. And when we look at the size of this, we're seeing 750 million people who will be in cities in Africa alone. That is probably double what it is now. We're seeing a situation where in China, the Chinese government are now actually planning to move 300 million Chinese people at the rate of 23 million citizens every 12 months for the next 14 years. These are momentous opportunities, staggering opportunities, which defy the human imagination. And yet, at the same time, we have these contrasts, because over half of these new urban dwellers are likely to be living in slums, and many of them on less than €3 a day. I suspect that unless we solve this challenge, we will find new protest movements grow up that will make Al-Qaeda look like a mosquito bite. The contrast between the wealth in this country and in some of the territories where my AIDS Foundation works, where in Zimbabwe we buy the education of a secondary school pupil for €1.50 a month. That is a challenge. I spoke to one of the largest oil companies in the world recently, and I said, how many people would it take to knock out all oil extraction in Nigeria, which is the 7th largest oil producer, to knock out all oil production in the whole of Nigeria for 10 years? The answer was 50 people. So when I went to Nigeria in February, it did not surprise me to find that 1/4 of the entire country's oil production had just been knocked out by 12 people. 12 out of 450 million young people growing up who see your life on CNN or a glimpse of it somewhere and then see their own. This is an issue. And yet, in these cities, we see tremendous, rapid social lift. We've heard already from CK about the bottom of the pyramid, a term which he has really made his own. And we have seen an enormous unmet need in these poorest communities, people who live on $1, $2, or $3 a day. Look at this. This is Hindustan Lever. They were doing moderately well with shampoo until they decided to split their bottles into 6 ml tiny little sachets. And now they started to market them to 400 million women on less than $5 to $10 a day each. And they now sell 53% of their shampoo to the bottom of this huge pyramid. We see another example of it in microbanking and most recently in microinsurance. There is a stampede by global banks to get in on this microfinance scheme, where the first loan can be €1, but the final loan might be €50,000, where a community may be living in tents in year 1 and in 4-story houses in year 15. A community which starts with just a loan of €1 and quickly moves to loans of €50 and actually wanting life insurance cover on a €50 loan. And these are new products, exciting new areas, and you'll see plenty of them. What about the EU? Well, of course, in our own society, we see other challenges. For us in healthcare, for example, we're seeing a major shift, as in the United States, from healthcare to performance, from being sick to having life improved. It's the Viagra effect. Some surveys suggest that 25% of all American students this morning took a mind-altering substance to improve their memory. It may not have improved their memory, but they hoped that it might. And at the same time, we see an epidemic of obesity. In the United States, 1 in 3 newborn babies born today will develop obesity. What does that do? What it does is it reforms our image of food. So in the old days, the last century idea was you just sell ice cream on the basis that it tastes good and it's a good price. It's a sexy product. However, in the new world, we find an emotional issue. We find governments moving to actually ban advertisements to children of ice cream and sweets. Fast urban tribalism is the most powerful force in the world today. It's more powerful than nuclear bombs. It's more powerful than the US, Chinese, and Russian military. The tribalism is when one group says we are us and you are them. Tribalism at its extreme produces terrorism. But tribalism at its best produces family, team, belonging, identity, relationship, brand, business unit, success. Tribalism will pull the EU apart. Globalization, universalism, pushes it together. The more tribal a community is, the more universal it wants to become. which is why Slovenia has rushed to become part of the EU. Why? Because Slovenia is a tiny tribal piece of a nation which has fallen to pieces over ethnic genocide. Tribalism, universalism, equal and opposite forces in the EU, and each of us belong to many tribes. Every company is at least one tribe. The reason why most mergers destroy shareholder value rather than create it is because of a misunderstanding of the strength of tribal relationships. You want a merger to work? Look first at tribal culture. Don't just look at the bottom line. If the tribal culture works and the bottom line looks good and all the synergies look great, you will have a fantastic merger. Tribalism is about building brands. Every successful company builds tribes. Every customer relationship is a tribal relationship. And when we pay attention to our tribes, we find that we can build market share. And for instance, direct marketing is one way to try to build a tribe, but the trouble is that we're seeing name removal of direct marketing campaigns at a rate of 600% per year. People saying, I don't want direct mail. But look at this. This is Belgacom, Skynet Belgacom, and they're getting response rates of up to 70% by targeting their own tribe with carefully produced messages, because they understand this isn't one tribe, this is 50 to 100, 300 tribes. And each tiny tribe within their big tribe is being targeted in a totally unique way. By the way, the quickest way to build a tribe or to unbuild a tribe is to use or abuse technology. Who here phones up a mobile phone company and you get irritated when the company says, press 1 for accounts, press 2 for service, press 3 for complaints, press 4 for service? Put your hands up if you find these kinds of robots irritating. I find them so irritating I want to stamp on my phone. You know, they can be really irritating. Now, can I have a confession time here? Because almost all of you said yes. Can I ask you if your company owns such a system? One or two brave people. Yeah, that's okay. Yes, confession time. I know most of you do. Now, why is this? You see, here we are, we're crazy people. We are logical, but we press the lift button more than once. And we are logical about what our customers want, but we don't connect with the things that make us angry. Because our customers are just like us. You have just told me that anyone that installs one of these systems where you have to go through 10 layers should be put in prison, right? Okay? You've just told me that. And yet you've also told me that most of your companies here are busy installing them. Or you have them. So what went wrong? You see, I'm not against technology. I love technology. I've been consulting in IT since 1978. I had my own IT startup right back then. I love technology. What I love is when it's used right, when it's used smart and makes me smile all day. When I phone up the first time and I get through after one option, I get through to a human being. I don't mind a little bit of technology. And I get through to a human being who sorts me out with one single putting me through. And then the next day I phone up from another country using my mobile phone, and straight away the call gets answered by Don. He says, hello, can I help you? And I say, yes, I'm looking for CK. He was sorting out my problem yesterday. I say, yep, I know, he's just stepped out. Patrick, it's Patrick, is it? Is Patrick on the phone? I'm speaking to you, right? I said, yes, it is. Patrick, I can tell you straight away. Just hang on just 1 second. I have it in front of me. I'm so sorry FedEx didn't deliver yesterday. We have repaired the Sony PC. It's gone out and should be with you later on today. And CK was trying to get through to you earlier, I think. Yes, I've just returned his call. Thank you very much. Smart technology. They knew who I was. They had instant communication. It was a human team of people who worked together in relationship, but they had access to their own stuff. And what's more, you could have bounced me to any other department in the same organization, and they would have held me in that same client relationship all the way through. And you know what? That thing is so smart, I'm telling all my friends about it. So that's intelligent use of technology makes the day. And, you know, it's particularly important when we're dealing with older customers who are getting more numerous in some countries. Look at this. 4 couples in Germany are needed today to produce a single great-grandchild. Why? Because if you only make 1.3, 1.4 children per couple, that's exactly what happens. You have a family tree which halves in every generation. Think about it. Here in Germany, a family tree halving from 50 people in the family to only 25 in one generation. From 25 to 12, from 12 to 6, from 6 to 3. That is what happens here. You see, you either have to make babies or you import them. That's a challenge. It's the same issue in my country. It's the same in Italy. It's the same in Sweden. It's the same in France. And by the way, in some countries, 75% of these older people control over 75% of all UK and US wealth is owned by those over the age of 65. Most of it in pension funds. So this is a wealthy group, very influential politically. Look at this. In Italy, there will be over 1 million voters who are over the age of 90 by 2026. In fact, 90% of them will be women because the men tend to die out. So we can say that the political future of Italy will be controlled by old women. And we can say that most of America is already owned by old women. We live in strange times. We live in times when people are disconnected in terms of products and services and markets and customers from the realities. Because actually, older people want something different. Put your hands up if you have to put your glasses on to read the restaurant menu. You go to eat in a restaurant and you have to put your glasses on. See, I'm 49. I'm getting to be an old man. I now need glasses in a restaurant. Why? Because they are discriminating against old people in every restaurant in London. Why? Because they don't print. They don't print the way they used to. They don't print large enough for an old person to read easily. This is crazy. I shave my face every day with a product, which shall remain nameless. But when I went to speak to the company who made it, I had a confession, which is I had been using their product for 4 whole years every morning for 10 minutes. I thought it was made by a competitor. The reason? Because the brand name was so small, I couldn't read it without my glasses. And I don't put my glasses on to read the brand name as I'm shaving my face in the bathroom. So we are institutionally blind to many things which are so obvious when we think about it for a moment. Here is another one. Who here has had difficulty in the last 2 years getting your personal organizer to communicate with your PC? Put your hands up. My goodness. Look at, it's almost everyone here, but we are all IT freaks. We of all people should be able to make this technology work. If we can't, how on earth do we expect anyone else in the world to do it? So what it means is, again, we are technologically blind to these things. It means that we are continuing to sell products that in no other sphere of life will be acceptable. We're continuing to roll out systems which are unreliable and incapable of being used even by IT experts. We should be ashamed. But we take it as normal just because we're institutionally blind. So we need to make technology work for older people. By the way, can we stop the tick-tock of your clock? Yes, we probably can. I haven't got time to go into it now. You can go on my website. But did you know that we have already interfered with the tick-tock of the clock in at least 6 different kinds of species, and some animals don't get old. This humpback whale shows no evidence of getting old in any of its systems. This humpback will live up to 200 years. Its cousin, its identical cousin, looks the same, eats the same food, swims in the same water, but dies in 20 years. So we have 2 animals. We're going to strip out the genetic code, and within 3 years we'll see the difference, and we'll know which genes it is, which turns off the biological clock and means the whale can live for 200 years. And we think it's the same genes that work in the turtle and in the sturgeon fish. Interesting. Now, I'm not going to go there in terms of stopping your clock. I don't think we will for a very long time, but we are seeing huge progress in the aging story. Fast, urban, tribal, universal. This, of course, is globalization. It's outsourcing, offshoring, and all the rest. It's about partnering to make the difference with people who are global experts in that particular thing, that in a way that will be very costly for you to do yourself to the same degree of excellence. Now, of course, there are good ways and bad ways to do it. And in the meantime, the whole job market is changing dramatically. In the UK alone, we have seen 400,000 people from Poland come along on EasyJet flights for around 25 euros each, work for the week and go home at the weekend. Some of them are staying, in fact, many of them are staying. And as they stay, new job markets are being created. So we might have thought about offshoring some jobs into Warsaw, but actually Warsaw is coming to London with all kinds of interesting effects. And of course, we could also be talking about outsourcing to India. Infosys has written on the back of this particular thing. Look at this. In the UK, we produce 6,000 IT graduates every year, but in India, they produced last year 840,000 people. So please don't tell me that this is all about outsourcing for cost. It's outsourcing for intellectual capital, because most of the IT intellectual capital in the world is being built in Bangalore, Hyderabad, and other places. Infosys alone is training 25,000 people. They need to find 1,000 new employees every 14 days just to stand still. 1,000 of people who could be otherwise working for you. Now, this particular story is going to have to stop. Why? Because it's producing wage inflation in India of 14% a year. And you don't have to have wage inflation at 14% per year for too long before you find that the wages are much closer to the EU average and the outsourcing economics start to break down. So we'll see. But it's all about total integration. It's about RFID technology, for example, perhaps the biggest techno step, offering cost savings that we have seen in the last 15 years in wholesale, manufacturing, retail, distribution, and the rest. It's real radio frequency identification devices, these PCs the size of a single grain of sand, with hardware, software, microprocessors, permanent memory, operating systems, and this is just the start. Walmart alone in the next 12 months will use 10 billion of these personal computers. Each of them has a life expectancy of up to 100 years in the environment. They need no battery or power source externally because they are powered by the electromagnetic radiation in the air that we breathe. It's a new way of thinking about distribution. It means absolute consistency every time. It means total knowledge, up to 70% reduction in theft losses. Look at these kind of metrics. They are incredible. 40% increase in warehouse efficiencies. That's quite typical of my clients who have used this in the last 18 to 24 months. CK, I think you've been wishing they had RFID technology on your bags. If they had, we would at least know where they were. We'd be able to work out every container, not just the containers, but also to micromanage every cubic meter inside every cardboard box. If you're in the health industry, this kind of technology produces huge benefits in terms of security, counterfeiting, quality control, clinical monitoring. We can go one stage further if you like. We can put them inside the brain. Here are human nerve cells growing onto the surface of an RFID type chip. Human brain cells don't need to be taught to do this. They are genetically programmed to work with computers. In fact, they love computers. Here's an example. Here is a chip. There's the chip. You put the brain tissue on and it organizes itself. The brain cells work their way in and they start communicating with each other and with the brain of the PC. So it means we can have thinking computers. I sat next to a friend of mine at dinner the other day. Actually, it was the first time I'd met him that night. As he picked up his fork and he went with his arm. Then his hand went round. He spun his hand round twice, 3 times, 4 times, and then spun it back again. I said, "How did you do that?" He said, "I'm thinking about it." He was controlling his bionic arm by thinking alone. Not quite in this way, but in a related way. Fast, urban, tribal, universal. It's all part of globalization. And the big prize, really, is to get this off the 10 billion boxes in Walmart every year and put it on the product. And Metro has already started doing that in Germany. That's history. You tell me the future. When you start tagging product, you're talking about maybe 10 trillion of these devices every few years entering the environment. You're talking about total knowledge of consumer behavior watched in real time and huge business opportunities. Why? Because it means we can then start to predict human behavior. We can watch product moving around the store. We can see the kinds of decisions that people make. And as we do, we get an emotional reaction. Why? I said, the future isn't about technology. It's not about RFID. It's about emotion. And wherever we use technology, we find a reaction. Which is why some of you, when I showed you chips inside of brains, started to react. And Benetton found that they had to start taking tags out of the trousers in the US because there was a national ban in America by consumers. Gillette found the same. Because people didn't want to walk down the street with you watching with your scanner what they got in their bags. So there are issues of privacy, confidentiality, and the rest. They will be overcome, I think, and we will find these things in the retail space. Fast, urban, tribal, universal, radical. You see, this leads us to radicalism, or the rise of single-issue activism, and the death of politics. Politics is about the old left-right traditions, which are dead a long time ago. Put your hands in the air if in the last 2 years you've paid money to a political party to be a member. I have? Okay, it's about 1%. Okay, put your hands in the air if in the last 2 years you've written a letter to an MP, a member of your parliament, you signed a petition, you sent an email to protest about something, you wrote to your governors of the local school, you joined Friends of the Earth or Greenpeace or some other campaigning group, perhaps you're campaigning against a new tram running outside your house. Whatever it is, if you've protested against something like that, put your hands up now. So politics is dead, but single-issue activism is totally alive. That's where the emotion is. This is an intellectual debate which is empty of passion. The passion has moved. And the passion is often irrational. It's narrow issues, and they're often issues of trust. In fact, usually somewhere along the line. It could be safety of medicines, global warming. It could be whether Turkey joins the European Union. It could be whether guns are allowed. It could be whatever it is. Genetically modified food, embryonic stem cells, whatever you like. Biased financial advice. But these single issues, all of them, have an opportunity attached to them. Every single issue attached to emotion is a window, it's a lens into the consumer and how people are thinking and feeling. And when you connect your products to these single issues, you start to see innovative markets, places where, as CK was talking about, you can exploit, you can amplify that early trend and get in there. And Islamic banking is a very good example of that. Tremendous profits for first people in, establishing their name and reputation with innovative products, the like of which had not even ever been thought about by a board of a large bank 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. Not seriously. And cause-related marketing is the fastest growing area of marketing expenditure today. You see, you heard of all this morning about convergence, and this afternoon, convergence on price and quality. It's the death by benchmarking. Basically, we have to be fit to survive or we have to be sexy. And you can converge all the way down with real cost pressures all the way as you go. But the trouble is, when you have become indistinguishable on price and on quality, when every product looks the same as has been described in terms of cars, what do you have left to make yourself different? The answer is nothing but your values. And that's why retailers like Tesco have started to tie their products to causes. So Tesco in the UK started offering vouchers. They said, you buy Coca-Cola from us, it's the same stuff, it's the same price, we are the same distance from you, it's exactly the same trolley of stuff. But when you buy it from us, we will give you a computer voucher for your children's school. And you know what? They didn't even need to sell it. It was like one of those things on TravelAdvisor.com, TripAdvisor. It just sold itself. And before they knew it, they had 1 million children selling to 1 million mums, who sold to 1 million dads, who sold to 1 million grandmothers, who sold to another 2 million friends, and the people playing golf, and the people in the next door house, and the people they work with, and the whole nation is suddenly connecting computer vouchers for cans of Coke. Why? Because it's a moral issue. You say, Dad, how could you have bought it from Walmart? That's the wrong thing to do. You know, there's no reason to go to Walmart. When you did it with us, we get a free computer for our school. I'm ashamed of you. And it becomes a campaign all in of itself. These are powerful things, and we see them in every area. And a big single area to watch, of course, is global warming. perhaps the biggest single issue for the next 25 years. And I don't care what you think about the graph. I don't care what you think about whether this is actually connected to global warming or not. I think it is. I'm concerned that China and India haven't yet started to burn carbon. I think there is a link. But even if you think there isn't, it's irrelevant. Why? Because the future is not about a graph. It's not about statistics. It's not about science. The future is about emotion. And the fact is, there is such an emotional pull on this issue that you will see, even if the science is gradually weakened over the next decade, you will see a gathering momentum to capture carbon dioxide and put it under the ground, for energy saving, for a tax on every air ticket, and all the rest of it. And in that single issue, you will find 10,000 opportunities to innovate inside your own organization, to attach a value to what you do, and to spin off new products and services. Whoever you are, and it's even in government, it's the same. In a non-profit, it's the same. Vast, urban, tribal, universal, radical, and with this face I close. We've been talking about it all the way through already, because whenever you talk about the future, you get to ethics. The most important face of them all, and it's about the passions that you have. It's why you get out of bed in the morning. You know, I have a question. See, I don't know how your change management program can work unless people care. You can have the best change management program in the world. You can have the best IT strategy in the world, the best e-government proposals in the world. But if the people who work for you really couldn't care less, it ain't going to happen. You can spend $1 billion a year on management consulting, and it won't happen. Well, you can force people at gunpoint to do something, but it's going to be very expensive. So passion is everything. And passion never comes from pressure, but it does come from purpose. And here is a survey from the UK. It shows that 90% of 30 to 40-year-olds in the UK, in my country, want to leave conventional business jobs like yours. It shows that 60% of the layer below, 60% of 25 to 35-year-olds see no reason whatsoever to get out of bed in the morning. They just don't get it. Now, I can't find an exact equivalent survey for Germany or France or Italy or Spain or the United States. But in every audience I've polled 70 in the last few weeks, in every country, I found the same, which is that most people are saying, okay, it might not be 60%, we think it's only 45%, but it's a problem, a big problem. Work-life balance, getting a better balance, is now #1 or #2 career priority for most people who want to work for you. It's a challenge. In fact, some companies here are already, I suspect, starting to include a promise of better work-life balance in your job offering. Put your hands up if you're starting to do that now. Come to us and we will give you a better work-life balance than your competitors. Put your hands up if you've got them. Now, and everyone else laughs. Why? Because they don't think you can deliver. But if you can, my friends, you will win the war for talent. Because what the job market is saying, it's their #1. It's actually more important than the pay rise. If you can get that right, if you can deliver it, and technology, my friends, is one of the most powerful ways in which we can do it. It's innovative, radical, life-enhancing, emotionally connecting technology which frees people to work how they want to, in the way they want to, and connects them back with the things which are important to them. And we see this similar passion in non-profits, and the fact that most executives give time to things they feel are important. It might be shaking a tin for the tsunami which you did last year. It might be that you walked the dog for an old lady you hardly know who fell over and broke her leg last week. It could be that you work as a volunteer for a small trust and you do the accounts. Maybe you work in a church as I do, or in a synagogue or a mosque. But let me just see. Put your hands in the air. If in the last 2 years you've done something for nothing, you weren't paid to do it, and it wasn't for a friend or an immediate member of your family, you just did it because you kind of wanted to do it. You felt it was important. Put your hands up. Have a look around. It's almost everyone. And you know what? It's a very unfair question to ask, because most of you are at the busiest point in your entire lives. So you outsourced it. Some of you paid money and someone else gave the time. But why did you do it? You did it because right inside this room, When each of those hands went up, I could find more about you in 3 minutes asking you what it is that you do for nothing. I will learn more about you and your real passions than I'll learn in 10 years working with you on a big IT integration project. Because I'll learn what you're going to do after the project's over, when you've retired. And behind each of the hands is a personal story. So what we're seeing in this room, what about the work-life balancing? Put your hands up. I know the answer to this one. Put your hands up if you've had a serious conversation about rebalancing the bits of your life in the last year. Put your hands up. Okay. So here is passion about family. Right here in this room. Passion about friends. Passion about community, which is what volunteering is about. Here's another question. Who here has had a passionate conversation about the war in Iraq and American foreign policy and what should happen next and all the rest of it? Put your hands up if you've had such a conversation in the last year. Put your hands up if you know someone personally in Iraq. It's nothing to do with you, is it? Why do I get passionate about it? I don't know anybody there, but I do. You see, there are these passions and they're there. They're there inside everyone who works for you in different ways. They're there in every one of your customers in different ways. If you wanted to connect with customers, connect with their passion. Understand what it is that they feel strongly about and connect with that, and they will be loyal and they'll follow you for a very long way. Treat them as just automatons that like ice cream without thinking about whether children were used to stir that ice cream somewhere in India. Not a good example. Perhaps the shoes would have been better. But we miss something that's important, and we quickly discover, therefore, that while companies talk about profit, shareholder value, and return on equity, that the conversation has left them far behind. The conversation amongst individuals, and it's your customers first, but it's your staff second, it's yourselves and your shareholders, everyone in your community, that's talking a different language. Not this one. In fact, you know what? I don't think I've ever met anyone who gets out of bed in the morning and says, "Oh, thank God I'm alive today. I can go and make more shareholder value and bottom line profit." I'm trying to write a book on these people. It's called The Story of the Missing Business People. If you can recommend someone to study, I would like to know. I've got one nomination from the entire global search in the last 3 years. Most people are not interested in this kind of language. They're interested in their own needs, yes, of course. To have a stimulating job, to be respected, to be appreciated, to have a great challenge, to be part of an interesting team, to spend time with family and friends, to be concerned about to be part of a community. But they want most of all to know they make a difference when they go to work, that they do something really worthwhile, that the world is some small way a better place because they actually bothered to get out of bed and not say they had a headache. They want to know there's some reason behind what they do other than just writing lines of code. We connect people with the passion, then we have to connect people with ultimately what they do to change people's lives at the bottom of the whole process. And so making life better, that is the ultimate slogan. It needs to drive every IT project. It needs to drive every process that we do. It is the basis of every customer proposition. Every product and every service you have ever sold is sold on this promise. That some way and some small way, some big way, you promise to make someone's life a better one. Isn't that right? There's no other way to sell than that. And your purpose, therefore, as a company is to deliver on that promise every single time. It's a moral issue. You signed a contract, whatever it is, a chocolate bar, you promised someone that it would be what you said it was. They unwrap it, and it's just as you said it was, or even better. And so how do we do it? Well, it's complicated in this fast, urban, tribal, universal, radical way. But I want to suggest to you that in order to build that better world, we have to do it together. That the days of DIYing it, doing it yourself, are over. That in this complex, multidimensional world, the key is partnerships with organizations who are at the cutting edge of every aspect of what we're doing. It's outsourcing, offsourcing, yeah, offshoring maybe, but often doing things in-house as well. The things that you know you're fundamentally better at than anyone else. And that the real secret of success will be knowing what those partnerships should be, how to build them, how to manage them, and to make them work. But at the end of it all, the driving purpose behind every partnership must be this, that it improves something significantly, it makes your life easier, my life better, it improves things for customers, it improves the quality of response, it helps people to feel involved, whatever it is that you're into, it communicates more rapidly what we are doing in government, it improves our healthcare to patients. We need to have a driving agenda. And when it's clear what that benefit is, there's partnerships will work, we'll have objectives that are better defined, we'll have motivated people and projects that deliver. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.